Before you begin, make sure you're in a well-lit area, have plenty of space, and have the proper tools needed to assemble your build. Begin by opening the box to your motherboard and remove all the included accessories and read through the user manual. Take the motherboard out of the anti-static bag and be sure to save it in case you need it in the future. Put the motherboard onto the box and use it as a base for your build. First, we're going to install the RAM memory. They're going to be installed in slots 2 and 4. Open the clasp on either side and firmly push the sticks down until they click securely in place. Next, we're going to install the M2 SSD. Begin by removing the cover. Then carefully slide the M2 into its slot. Remove the protective plastic on the cover before putting it back and screwing it into place. To install the CPU, we begin by lifting the lever and opening up the cover. Carefully align the CPU with the socket and be very careful not to bend any pins. Before closing the cover, and firmly push down on the lever until the plastic cover pops out. Now we're going to prepare the AIO cooler. Begin by opening the box and take out all the accessories, as well as the AIO cooler itself. Since it's an AMD processor, we're going to use the AMD accessories. Remove the pre-installed brackets so that we can install the screws for our cooler. It's time to open up the chassis. Remove the glass side panel and take off the protective film on the front. Take out the accessory box. And don't forget the protective film on the fans. Lay the chassis down on its side. Take the accessory box that we just removed and find these screws right here. Carefully slide the motherboard into place before fastening with the screws that we just picked out from the box. Once the motherboard is in place, we can lift the chassis up and remove the other side panel. Once again, remove the protective film from the chassis fans and release the cables on the backside. Now it's time to route some cables to the front so we can pull them into the motherboard. Through the bottom, we route the HD audio, front panel, and RGB header. And through the side, the chassis fans. And then we plug the connector for the front panel here. The RGB header here. And the HD audio connector here. And the chassis fans connector that we pulled through the side are plugged in right here. Now we're gonna pull the USB connectors to the side so we can plug them into the motherboard as well. They're gonna be plugged into here and also here. Make sure they're aligned correctly. When you're done connecting those cables, it's a good time to do some cable management on the backside. Now it's time to give your system some power. Open up the power supply box and take out all the cables, the power supply, and included accessories as well. we're gonna need 4 cables. 1 for the motherboard, 2 for the CPU, and 1 for the graphics card. When you install the power supply into the chassis, make sure that the fan is pointing down so you have proper airflow. Secure the power supply with included screws to the chassis. Open up the box to your graphics card and take it out of the anti-static bag. Make sure you keep the bag in case you need it in the future. Remove the protective plastic from the fans, as well as the protective plastic from the PCIe connector, as well as the video ports. Since this is a 2-slot graphics card, I'm gonna need to remove 2 metal plates from the back side of the chassis. Be sure to keep the screws, as we're gonna need them in just a bit. Push down the plastic holder and slide the graphics card into place until it clicks securely. After that, use the screws that we just removed to secure it onto the chassis. Now to route some power cables. Begin by routing the CPU power cables up to the top of the chassis and the motherboard and graphics card cable to the side. Alternatively, you can route the graphics card cable through the bottom of the chassis. Plug the CPU power cable into the motherboard right here. Make sure they click into place. Insert the graphics card power cable into your GPU, making sure you use both the 6 and the 2 pin since this is an 8-pin card. After that, we plug in the motherboard power cable, making sure it's aligned correctly and push down firmly. After that, we do some more cable management on the backside. Now to prepare the AIO cooler for installation. Begin by removing the plastic from the fans before screwing them onto the radiator, making sure the cables are on the same side on both fans. Connect the fans together like this, as well as the RGB header like this. Then open up the extension cord for both the fans and the RGB and connect them to radiator fans. Now to install the pump. Begin by removing the plastic cover and replace the pre-installed brackets with the AMD bracket that we picked out before. And then carefully align it onto your CPU. Tighten it down, preferably diagonally, so you have a proper connection with your CPU. Release the cables to your pump and plug them in to the connectors on the motherboard marked sysfan1 and DLED2 on the right side here. Remove the protective film from your pump and then grab your radiator and plug the RGB header into the pump header that we just plugged into the motherboard, like this. Grab the cable to your radiator fans and plug them into the connector on the motherboard marked with CPU fan. Now take the radiator and put it up on the top of the chassis and secure it with screws. Before we start up the computer and close up the chassis, it's time for some final cable management. Put the side panel back into place. Before we put on the second side panel, try and start up the computer. If you have followed this guide correctly, everything should light up and the fans should start spinning. Our final step is to put the glass panel back into place. Congratulations to your brand new computer.